Hey everybody, Six String Supplies. Today I'm showing you how to wire our PRS wiring kit. This video, whilst it is our PRS wiring kit, it can actually be used and replicated for any dual humbucker loaded guitar that's using a single volume and a single tone, and a three-way switch obviously. I'm actually going to be doing two separate videos on this. So video one, this one, is the basic setup just discussed. Volume, tone, three-way switch. But actually the next video, which will probably be released next week sometime, it will be the next video anyway, it's going to be exactly the same, but with a push-pull tone control, which will be used to split each humbucker. And actually this is commonly used in PRS models, so we're going to demonstrate and explore the PRS partial coil split. We're using two SSS Premium 500k CTS pots. These are our custom spec CTS pots. If you haven't tried them out yet, give them a go. I don't think you'll be disappointed. We're also using a Switchcraft 1/4" jack socket. This is the industry standard. A Switchcraft right angle toggle switch. Again, the industry standard, but of course you can use the short frame version for this wiring setup. Gavitt braided hookup wire, which comes with all of our wiring kits that are not Fender based. Tinned copper wire. This is 1mm diameter, which in American wire gauge I think is 22. The kit comes with an orange drop as standard, 0.022, but you can, in the wonderful world of the internet, you can choose an upgrade to the paper and oil version. Again, this is our SSS Premium branded cap. Give those a go as well if you haven't yet. Anyone who watches our videos knows that we do enjoy heat shrink rubber tubing, so we've got two sizes here. And actually this kit, or this setup, is where it does become quite useful. So we've got 3.2mm diameter here, which we use to cover the braided hookup wire, and the yellow is quite simply sleeving for the capacitor leads. In terms of tools, equipment, apart from the obvious, I'm using a couple of templates. We offer a range of these templates on our website that just help you keep everything in the right place. So we've got SG versions, 335, obviously all the others, Les Paul Deluxe, Strat, Tele, Les Paul Junior, base models. We'll start with the switch. On the right angle Switchcraft switch, this big lug here, the thicker one, is our ground, and the two on the underside here are the output to the jack socket. And what you need to do is just, I've already done it obviously, but they need to be soldered together essentially, so your output wire's got to go through both of them. So we'll just squeeze those together. Use some tinned copper, or even, this is tinned copper, the capacitor lead, a spare one, or I'm using cloth wire with the cloth removed, and it's just the inner wire with no insulation. We're going to feed that through the ground lug, and then we're going to solder that. Next, we're using our braided hookup wire. We're going to push the braid back a bit. It's about an inch, just over an inch. Push the inner cloth back a bit. And we need to feed this through the output lugs. So if you feed it through both and bend it round, it will grip both of them together. Then we're just going to push the cloth back down as far as it will go. And we need to push the braid back, but not all the way. Obviously, we cannot have this braid coming into contact with the lugs. That will create a short. So one way around that is just to cover it with some heat shrink tubing. Heat shrink all the way down. As with any toggle switch, and you can refer to our how to wire a Les Paul toggle switch video, we're now going to wrap the ground wire around the braid. Like that, that's the toggle switch done. The beauty of using braided wire, this outer braid is now our ground, and we can use that to ground the two pots together. So what we need to do, apologies for the light reflection, I'll try and get this as clear as we can. So this wrap of wire we soldered earlier, we need to ground that to the side of the tone control here. Now what I always do on our tone controls in any circuit is I'll remove this outer lug here. It's not going to be used. It's no harm whatsoever in clipping it off with some wire cutters. And obviously in this case what it does is just eliminates any risk of the braid connecting, touching it and then creating a short. So essentially we're going to be doing something like this. One way to do it actually is using the lugs of the pots just to keep the wire in place, like a natural helping hand. There you go, you should get a better view. Like so. That's nicely grounded to the side of the tone pot. Then you can just push these lugs back out the way. So we're just going to use some heat shrink tubing just to cover the length there. Use your heat gun. I'm going to be bending this outer braid around. I'm just going to tuck it in against the volume lug like that and bend it round just to lock it in place, and we're going to put a solder joint on the outer braid there. That's our two pots grounded together. And we can tuck this away now. The customer's asked for 50s wiring, so what we need to do is ground this lug here to the pot casing, and the middle lug on our tone control is going to be grounded as well. You can use a snippet of wire using the tinned copper in the wiring kit, or you can just bend it onto the pot casing and solder it in place that way. So I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to hold the soldering iron behind it, fill it with solder, let it cool naturally, and when it's cold enough, bend it back onto the pot casing, like so. And we're just going to repeat it essentially. So put the soldering iron behind it, there's a very small gap, and just flow it in, reflow it all, and it will melt. And you'll see on the camera, there we go, it just drops onto the tin plated pot casing. Same again, place your soldering iron behind, come in from the other side, fill the hole, bend it back onto the pot casing at an angle. You don't want to be soldering into this gap here, so we're going to bend it at an angle, and we're going to do the exact same. There we go, and as you can see, there's a nice bridge. If I can get the camera to focus. There's a nice bridge between the two there. That's the bridge of solder. I know some people don't like that. That's fine. Like I say, you can use a little snippet of wire and do it that way. Now this wire here, this outer braid, this is actually going to be connected to the input to the volume control, which is this lug here, bottom left. But obviously we need to remove the braid out of the way because it is ground and we don't want that. So we're just going to snip the wire literally a couple of millimeters in front of the lug, as you can see. We're then going to remove the outer braid. So you can just push it back. There's plenty of ways to do this. I do it a really lazy, cheap way. I'll push it back, puff it up, and then if you've got a decent pair of cutting tools like this or pliers, you can just cut the braid away. So I'll cut it away and then I'll twist what's left together like that. And then we'll cut that away as well. And it's the signal wire that we need to connect to the input lug of the volume. So I'm just going to push that cloth back a little bit. And this is where tape really can be your friend. You can use, I'm using the Gorilla tape, which is pretty damn tough. And it's just to hold the wire against the pot whilst we solder it into the volume input, as you can see. So we solder this into place again, as we have done previously. Put your soldering iron behind, give it a few seconds of heat, and then you just flow it in, and it very nicely fills the hole. Solder this braid to the pot casing as well. Even though we've already done it on this side, it just makes it look nice and neat. There's no need to do it once you've grounded it once, but we'll do it again anyway. So with that one length of braided wire from the switch, we've got a grounded switch, we've got the volume and tone pots grounded, we've grounded the lugs that need to be grounded for 50s wiring. Of course, you can obviously wire it modern wiring. And we've got the input from the switch going into the volume control. So we're going to put in our capacitor now. As I was saying earlier, this is 50s wiring. So our tone cap is going from the middle lug of the volume control to the lower lug here of the tone. And we'll just go ahead and solder in the tone side even. Now I'm going to leave the volume side for now, for the simple reason that we need to add in another wire. And I've also just covered the braid here, pulled the braid back, but then we've covered the whole thing really with rubber tubing, because I am going to lay this wire down in between the lug here up against the pot, because we need to ground the outer braid to the edge of the tone control. You don't have to do it that way. You can of course just have it going on the outside like this, but I've always, out of habit, just done it this way. And we're going to solder them both in place with the tone capacitor. When you're done, it should look like this. The inner cloth wire, the signal wire of this braided lead, is going to the output of the volume control with our tone capacitor, and then I'm running it through between the pot lugs. We're grounding the outer braid to the edge of the tone pot just here, and the other end of this wire is going to our jack socket. For the jack socket, as previously, I've prepared the braided wire, so I've removed about 1 inch of the braid using my pliers. Once twisted all together, rather than completely cutting it off, I've left a little ledge here, which will be threaded through the ground lug of our jack socket. I've covered the rest of it here in heat shrink tubing. That is completely optional, just something I do out of habit. And then if you can see, I've got a little bit more of tubing here, which I've just pushed all the way up the sleeve for now, and that will go all the way back down to the jack socket once soldered in place. So I'm using a standard Switchcraft jack that comes with the kit. Just need to push the cloth back. Thread it through. I'll bend it around so you've got a nice solid mechanical connection, and then we will solder that one in place. And once it's cooled, as I said earlier, we're just going to push the cloth all the way as far down as it will go, and then that 3/4 of an inch or so of rubber tubing, heat shrink, we can push that all the way back down. And like I say, this is completely optional. It's simply just to protect the output of the jack, I guess, and potentially have a longer life jack socket. And for the ground lug, I'm just going to bend the wire down, and this is where this ledge that we created earlier from the twisted wires, we're going to feed that through the ground lug of the jack, and then we're just going to bend it back round so it's a nice solid mechanical connection. And if you're using a template, you can put your jack socket back in the hole just to keep it in place. And we're just going to flow in some solder. That's the main harness done. For the pickups, nice and simple. We are putting our neck signal wire to this lug here on the switch. Our bridge is going to this lug on the right hand side, so neck, bridge. We're going to ground our pickups wherever you find easiest, so it can be either on the casing here of the volume or likewise on the tone control. I think typically you'd put it on the volume because they're generally closer to the pickups anyway. Same with the main ground from the bridge, you can put it on either, but again, typically on a PRS it's going to be closer to the volume pot. It all depends on how many different ground connections you can fit onto the top of the pot. There you go guys, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you real soon in the next video.